Hello, welcome to our thought for the day. As we approach the general election, I have been thinking about differences of opinion. Recently, it's been feeling to me like we are forgetting how to disagree well, to listen to one another, to discuss differences of opinion in a civilized manner. It is well known that the algorithms on social media show us opinions and articles that we agree with, so that we are becoming more polarized and feel more assured that we are right and that our opinion is the most important and someone with a different opinion is wrong. Human nature means that we all have different needs and opinions. So in some ways, conflict is inevitable. But do we have to fall out? How could we deal with it better? As a Christian, I tend to turn to the Bible for my guidance. What wisdom does the Bible offer us in terms of disagreement? We need to be wary in terms of having fixed opinions, getting into a mindset of, I am right, you are wrong. I must win this argument. My point of view is the most important. Throughout the Bible, we are told not to engage in these kinds of disagreements. Paul warns us in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 23, to avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing they create general strife. Verse 24 continues, a servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but be gentle to all. Maybe we get wound up by somebody else's opinion and we react critically, disparaging the other person or attacking them personally. Becky Sweat, a Christian writer for Discern magazine, says that at this point, we are not only disagreeing, we are being disagreeable. I would like to share with you some of her article on the subject of conflict, combined with some of my thoughts. I have found it very helpful thinking about how I deal with conflict as a Christian. So, back to the subject of disagreements with others. We might find ourselves getting angry, pushing the other person on the defensive. It can often become an ugly dispute with raised voices, cruel words, and in the worst case scenario, physical violence. None of this is good for either party. It can lead to frustration, hurt, and sometimes long-term resentments. However, there can be times when you can have healthy disagreement. You can respectfully exchange opposing opinions. Both sides can listen to one another and feel heard and valued. Each person can gain a better understanding of each other's perspective, and the relationship can grow deeper due to the mutual respect and understanding of one another's different opinion. The Bible tells us how to disagree without being disagreeable. So how does the Bible help us to have a healthy differences of opinion? Well, one of the principles in the Bible is to choose your battles wisely. We are living in a speak your mind culture. Sometimes we feel entitled to jump in on other people expressing their opinion with our point of view. In Proverbs 26, verses 4 to 5, it says that we should answer a fool according to his folly. So if someone is being a keyboard warrior and spouting off nonsense that could cause serious damage, if not addressed, well, that deserves a response. However, if the subject discussed isn't really that important, or it's just a difference of opinion, or if that other person doesn't seem to be open to another's perspective, maybe the wisest course is to keep quiet. Or maybe take another approach and reach out to people privately and talk to them face to face, respectfully, and listen to them, rather than getting caught up in an online war. And we too must be careful not to be contrary and opinionated just for the sake of it. We can irritate others and they will be less likely to listen because they find us annoying and argumentative. The second principle is to be gracious. If we're rude and overbearing in our opinions, or patronising, or overly assertive, we can ramp up the conflict and escalate the tension. However, if we take some advice from Ephesians chapter 4, verses 2 and 3, it advises us to be completely humble and gentle. Be patient. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bonds of peace. Further on in verse 32, it instructs us to be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God forgave you. So let us be gracious to others. It doesn't make us a walkover or a doormat. It means that we are making a choice to choose love and kindness in our dealings with others, especially in matters of conflict. The third principle is to listen more, talk less. Now, this is a principle that I definitely need to pay attention to. I often remind myself that God created me with 2 ears for listening and 1 mouth for speaking, and to use them in that order. It is important that we remember to listen to others. In James chapter 1, verse 39, he tells us, be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 35 says, a wise man will hear and increase learning. I often get this wrong. How many times have you found yourself not really listening to the opinion of the other person, instead planning what you are going to say in reply? Listening is a really important skill that all of us need to develop well. How do you feel when someone isn't truly listening to you? Perhaps you feel frustrated or disrespected, or feel like your opinion doesn't matter to the other person. We must remember this and make sure that we do practice listening without interrupting. Try really hard to understand what the other person is saying, and if we're unsure, ask questions in an open way so that they realise that we are trying to understand their perspective. I know that when I feel truly listened to, I feel seen. And even if we still disagree, it removes some of the tension and conflict from the situation. The fourth principle is think before you speak. The last part of James chapter 1 verse 19 warns us against being rash. If we strongly disagree with someone and blurt out whatever first comes to mind, we will often rub people up the wrong way. Take time to think through what to say and how to say it. If we see a social media thread we strongly disagree with, rather than immediately tap away your response, you should give yourself time to calm down so that you can decide if it is something that you should respond to. If we decide to respond, take the time to think how you can word it in a sensitive and thoughtful way. There are many times when I have typed a message, then pressed delete and removed it all because I know that I've acted in temper. Proverbs 29 verse 11 sums up this principle well. It says, a fool vents all his feelings, but a wise man holds them back. Now, I am not suggesting that you suppress your feelings, but that you take time to assess what is important to you to express and to do so in a thoughtful and discerning way. Our fifth principle, is to look for common ground. Disagreements can get out of hand when the two parties cannot see any common ground. But if we can agree on something, even just the smallest thing, it helps us to see the humanity in the other person. There are many Christians with a wide array of beliefs, and we may have different opinions on different matters. However, if we can find the core beliefs that we agree on, It can help us talk through the trickier subjects where disagreement may arise. The apostles practiced this principle. Paul, Peter, and Barnabas didn't always agree on how to do God's work, but they did recognize that each other was a follower of God and to lovingly address each other as brother. And this helped them to see things from each other's perspective, even if they didn't always agree. And finally, our last principle is to act in humility. If you disagree with someone, discuss it to get a better understanding of the topic rather than to prove that we are right and they are wrong. In Philippians chapter 2, verse 3, it says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others." Sometimes our own ego makes us want to convince others that our opinion is right. Whereas if we take an approach that we might learn something from the other person and be curious about their point of view, we can take a lot of tension out of the disagreement and maybe even change our own opinion. In Romans chapter 12, verse 18, it says that if we disagree with someone, we must make peace our priority. It says, "As much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men." And above all these principles, follow the principle that Jesus outlined when he spoke to the disciples at the Last Supper. And he said, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." I know that this is easy to say and not so easy to do in matters of conflict. But if we remember this command from Jesus and we love each other in the midst of disagreement, and then perhaps we can grow together and form deeper, stronger bonds of respect, love, and understanding for one another, then the world will see us as Christians demonstrating how to disagree well and love one another as Jesus loved us. Thank you for listening to our thought for the day. May peace be with you as you navigate disagreements in your life. Hold on to love and look for God's image in the person you are disagreeing with. Bye for now. Bye-bye.